Good time, as they say, wherever you are. I know people join us from all over the world. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome this very distinguished panelist. The idea for this conference began when I saw and began to read the collected volume of Ehsan Yarshater's Yaddashtha that Dr. Zandian had compiled. That book is now available for purchase. I strongly urge you to purchase this, not only because it's a beautiful prose by master prosists about some of the most important cultural developments of our time, but that's also how these books continue to be published. They need to be purchased and they need to be supported. How you can order the book is on our website, and you can go to that link. There are a few people that I want to thank before I turn it over to our panelists. First and foremost, I want to thank, I know maybe Ms. Afkhami will do it, but as an Iranian, as someone interested in Iran's culture and history, I want to thank Princess Ashraf Pahlavi for being the first and so far the only member of the royal family to support a cultural endeavor of this magnitude. Without her generosity, Iran Nameh would not have been possible. Without Mahnaz Afkhami's managerial brilliance, the endowment would not have been created, but her generosity was singular. Secondly, the people who supported Iran Shanasi, whose name never appears on the papers of Iran Shanasi, they deserve, I think, our praise. They include Dr. Montazeri and Mr. Khayyami, and I think Ahmed Qureshi. Ahmed Qureshi, for the entire duration of Iran Shanasi, was behind the scene, its master support. And then finally, I want to tip my hat and say thank you to Dr. Jalal Matini. With the help of Mahnaz Afkhami and the other people that I mentioned, Jalal Matini went on to edit 2 of the 3 most important journals published in Iranian diaspora in the last century. That is a remarkable feat to do. And it is the only 2 journals supported entirely by the Iranian American community or Iranian community at large. Kaveh, which is the other one, was supported by Germany. So these 2 journals, in their brilliance, owe not only a great deal to the people I mentioned, but also to Jalal Matini. We should have had him here. Unfortunately, he is not feeling well, but I send him my best wishes. And I welcome Mahnaz Afkhami to tell us about the foundation and how it all began. And thank you all for accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much, Abbasyan, for your wonderful introduction and for your kind comments. And I'm very, very glad to be here, particularly at the Stanford seminars, talking about Yaddashtha and about Ehsan Yarshater's impact on the foundation, which is seldom recognized even by those who were very closely involved with the foundation. The subject of the conversation is the connection between Ehsan and the foundation. And I would like to take up Ehsan's own methodology in writing his diaries, his intellectual diaries, the Yaddashtha, that is connecting the personal to the formal and the professional. So starting with that, I will say that I have known Ehsan almost all of my life since I was a child. He was a good friend of my mother, who was one of the 3 women who first attended university in Iran. And that is where she met Ehsan and became friends with him. And of course, later, the family connection continued with his sister and family, with ours. And Ehsan was actually the first person who introduced me to reading and to literature. I was a child, actually, in grammar school, but he gave me books that were mind-boggling for a child of my age, but they came from different countries, War and Peace, Gone with the Wind, whatever. And it was difficult to quite follow these books in translation, but what it did is it pressured my mental capacities to understand other ways of living and other ways of expressing yourself and making decisions. So this was the first. And the second thing that was even possibly more important was when I was an adolescent going to school in America and finishing high school, I wrote to him and discussed with him that I would like to go be a doctor. And of course, at that time, any young Iranian outside the country had to be either an engineer or a doctor. And thank heavens I had Ehsan who wrote to me and said, "Are you crazy? You are not that kind of person. You're not into sciences. You are a literary fan. And what I would suggest is English literature, because it is both the field that you would do well in and also you love. And at the same time, English literature studied in English-speaking countries has very few, if any at all, in Iran right now. I think later I found out that there was only Dr. Suratgar at Tehran University who had actually done that. So this was beautiful because it made me have a much happier life and also do what I like to do. And it led to other decisions that were also very helpful. So this is the personal piece, but where the personal and the professional become connected is after the revolution, because before it, of course, we had connections, we saw each other in gatherings and so forth. But it was after the revolution, as an exile in New York, that I had a considerable connection and advice from Ehsan. And he encouraged me to start some institution or organization that would use my experience in management before, and also will be very welcome with a group of diaspora who are all at odds with each other. All of them have lost so much. All of them have had people imprisoned or worse. And they all seem, the various groups blame each other for what has happened. And what we need is a voice and a place that would be safe for all groups, all backgrounds, and also can use the extraordinary possibilities that the diaspora have in this time, because most of them, they're intellectuals, scholars, managers, high-level functionaries in various areas were outside of Iran or were fast coming outside of Iran. And so what they need was to be able to be connected to what the new government was not at all interested in. And that was the pre-Arab conquest Iran, anything having to do with Persia and Persians, and anything to do with the things that Iranians love more than anything, that is the ceremonies, the celebrations, the literature, the arts that have to do with their ancient history. So, so we thought that we would set up an organization and try to have as actually non-partisan a space as possible to have people express themselves, right, do the research and so forth. So the first project, as Ehsan suggested and the other board members very much supported, was creation of the journal Iran Nameh. And as Abbas mentioned, I already had the good fortune of being a close friend of Ahmad Qureshi, who was a Mashhadi, like Dr. Matini, and also he was the chancellor of National University. And actually, we had spent a lot of our lives, my husband and I, with him in Colorado when we were going to university. And so Ahmad was a member of the new board, the board of the new organization, and he suggested Dr. Matini for the board, and we already had him on our board, but Ehsan was the one who stressed that he would be the best editor for this kind of journal, and he was absolutely right. Dr. Matini was hugely knowledgeable and deeply involved with all aspects of Iranian history and literature. And so together we all decided that in order to be successful with this new journal, which at the time was the only one that existed, that we would be well to stay away from contemporary issues, which would be divisive. So I was just looking this morning at the first copy of the journal. It's a very sort of, I don't have it here with me, otherwise I'll show it to you. It's about 100 pages, and there is, the people in it are Safa and Javadi, and Dr. Matini himself, and Dr. Nas, talking about historical periods. Nas, for instance, talking about Sufism, and the others talking about the various aspects of older, I just found it, Jalal Mutlaq, حماسه‌های تاریخی و دینی در عهد صفویه is his article. Dr. Matini wrote the longest article on khiyaban and the word and how it was used. And so it was a very, very minimalist journal, starting with these scholars and well-known writers. But gradually, of course, Iran Nameh had the support of both Dr. Yarshater, who was on the board from then on, and also some of the most well-known scholars of Iranian studies, and it kept growing with wonderful people participating in it. And at the point when Dr. Matini set up Iran Shenasi, then we had Darim Shaigan working with Ashuri, then we had Meskoob working with Hormoz, who was another, both of those other extraordinary scholars and people, just good people. And then finally with Dr. Tawakkoli, where the journal was published in Toronto, actually. And it became, more interesting in terms of images and topics, a little bit more cool, let's say. And so all the time, though, throughout, Ehsan wrote for the journal, supported it, participated in board decisions, and was a great help to me personally, because if he said it was okay, then I was sure it is okay, everything, whatever the decision was. And Iran Nameh grew to be a major publication, and Dr. Matini's effort in the new journal, Iran Shenasi, also became an extraordinary effort and very, very useful. And the next project that was very helpful was the oral history program of the foundation. I had lost a lot myself in the revolution. I was outside when negotiating with the United Nations to set up a global center for training and research on women, signing the final documents, legal documents. It took too long. The UN being what it is, instead of 2 weeks for which I had come, it took 2 months. And when I was going to go back, I was told I can't go back. So here I was in the city of New York with one suitcase and not much else. And Ehsan was there, of course, at Columbia. And it was his support and backing was extraordinarily important. And having lost my notes, my papers, my diaries, everything else, I became passionate about saving what we could. And so the oral history program at Columbia University was basically the first, the underlying, foundation for other oral history programs elsewhere. And so I got to know Elizabeth Mason, who was the founding chair of the Oral History Association, and Professor Greeley, who was also the head of the department. And they were very helpful in giving us what we needed in terms of training. And Elizabeth Mason actually came to Washington for a week to train the oral historians who were going to be involved. And it was very interesting. Later she wrote, Elizabeth, who had so much experience in oral history, because of the level of people who were involved, we were in a sense lucky that we had access to people as we did. For instance, the person who was the overview person for the editing and indexing of the interviews was Dr. Nasser Yeganeh, who was the Chief Justice of the United States. Of Iran, I'm sorry. And he was in exile, of course, and worked with us. And the others, extraordinary people that under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be able to get. Farrokh Ghaffari, who was one of the main forces behind the Shiraz Festival, for instance, to Art Festival, to be interviewing people who were involved in the arts. And others, Kevorkian, for instance, others, politicians, and so forth. So Elizabeth Mason wrote, she says, what a challenge to develop a methodology with scholars of this caliber. What an opportunity to examining and applying oral history theories to recording contemporary political crises. This week I spent in Washington was an extraordinary one. I learned as much as I taught. It was an extraordinary opportunity for us to have, etc. So she was so impressed with our interviewers and also with the system. It was just bad luck for our interviewers and ourselves, but it was really good luck for the program. And of course, if it hadn't been for connection to Columbia, where Ehsan was a well-known and respected scholar, it might not have happened quite this way. So these two were major efforts which we did with his help, but the others was something that he again passed on to me, which I think he carried out in his own professional life, and that was don't limit your work to one organization and its parameters. Try to get together with other larger, more capable organizations in each specific area to spread your reach and to get resources that you wouldn't be able to have by yourself. And that was absolutely true, because Abbas said that Princess Ashraf, who was really passionate about academics and about scholarship, mostly because she never had a chance. She never had a chance to go to college. She wanted to go, but it wasn't possible. I think I see Roma. Am I going over time? All right. So, so she gave us 2 million total. But what we were able to do with that was to partner with universities such as UCLA, where we set up with very little funding, joining UCLA, program, a special major in Iranian Studies. It took a ridiculously small amount of money, the two of us, the two organizations together. George Washington, with whom we had the Nowruz lectures, which brought the most well-known Iranian scholars from various parts of the world to give that lecture, which was then published. And also, of course, with MESA, where Dr. Yarshater participated and moderated our plenaries, both in Persian and in English, and and we became a member of the organization, MESA's partner organizations. So these were also what he liked. He was very interested in and helped us with events, with establishing connections with museums, Textile Museum, Sackler Gallery, which is now the Iranian, Asian Museum of Asian or National Museum of Asian Art. So to sum it up, the expansion of the work of the partnership foundation would not have been possible without taking that view that we partner with others. We're not specifically ending with the organization we have. The last thing that I want to say is that his interest in the Yaddashtha it's reflected in the Yaddashtha, is in spreading Persian culture and language in other countries which have been part of the Persian world, among them Tajikistan. And Ahmad Karimi Haqqaq helped us set up a branch of the foundation in Tajikistan to teach Tajik children Iran's language, the Persian language and the literature that was could be available to them, and we provided that with them. And the Tajik scholars came to give speeches and conduct events. So this also was an idea that Ehsan reflects in Yaddashtha. There's a lot to talk about, and I'm sorry, I don't want to take more time, but maybe in the questions I can answer some more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Afkhami. As we welcome Dr. Zandian, just a reminder that her talk is in Farsi, but we have an English translation that will be linked to in the chat. So hopefully you can follow along, and welcome Dr. Zandian.
Thank you. وقت همگی بخیر. سپاسگزارم از مرکز مطالعات ایرانی دانشگاه استنفورد، مدیر محترم مرکز آقای دکتر عباس میلانی و همکارانشون خانم روما پرهاد و آقای فرانکو اریکو برای سامان دادن این برنامه و برای فرصتی که به من هم دادید. صحبت امروز من در یک نگاه فراگیر درباره شخصیت و جهانبینی استاد احسان یارشاتر خواهد بود. بازبینی شخصیت چند سویه دکتر یارشاتر با نگاهی به کتاب به تازگی منتشر شده یادداشت‌ها که مجموعه است از متون مستقلی که دکتر یارشاتر در یک بازه زمانی 26 ساله برای نشریات ایران نامه و ایران شناسی نوشتند. متونی با موضوعهایی به غایت متنوع که به نظر من از جمله به همین دلیل میتونه چشماندازهای بسیاری باشه به سوی شخصیت چند سویه استاد یارشاتر. تنوع موضوعی این یادداشت‌ها که در برگیرنده مطالبی درباره تاریخ، ادبیات، یعنی رمان، شعر، خاطره نویسی تا فرش، نقاشی، عکاسی و موسیقی است، به نظرم نشان دهنده دید وسیع و ذهن در برگیرنده دکتر یارشاتره. ویژگی‌های مهم بلکه ضروری برای کسی که سردبیر یک دانشنامه است. از طرف دیگه فکر میکنم بازخوانی این یادداشت‌ها در پس زمینه خودشون فرایند شکل گرفتن یک جامعه فارسی زبان رو در بیرون از جغرافیای متعارف خودش به خواننده نشون میدن. تلاش من این خواهد بود که در دقایقی که دارم روی این چند نکته تاکید کنم و از اینجا صحبتم رو با چند اسلاید نشون خواهم داد. یادداشت‌ها عنوان کتابی است در برگیرنده 164 متن مستقل که دکتر احسان یارشاتر در فاصله سالهای 1365 تا 91 خورشیدی 1986 تا 2012 میلادی برای نشریات ایران نامه و ایران شناسی نوشتند. هر دو این نشریات توسط دکتر جلال متینی بنیاد گذاشته شده بودند و هر دو در بنیاد مطالعات ایران Foundation for Iranian Studies که خانم افخمی توضیح دادند شروع به کار کردند. یادداشت‌ها همونطور که از عنوانشون پیداست مقاله‌های دانشگاهی با اون تعریف علمی نیستند. یادداشت‌هایی هستند درباره هر آنچه که در فاصله انتشار 2 شماره از این نشریات بیشتر مورد توجه دکتر یارشاتر قرار می‌گرفته و فکر می‌کنم به همین دلیل تا حدی جهانبینی استاد رو بازتاب میدن که چه مسائلی بیشتر توجه او رو جلب می‌کرده و اونها رو چگونه یادداشت می‌کرده. کتاب به پیشنهاد خانم مهناز افخمی مدیرعامل بنیاد مطالعات ایران و با پشتیبانی مالی بنیاد میراث ایرانی Persian Heritage Foundation در 534 صفحه تدوین شده. تصویری که می‌بینیم جلد کتاب، روی جلد کتاب کار کوروش بیکپور و همینجا یادآوری می‌کنم که صفحه آرایی کتاب و ایندکس کتاب کار خانم ژیلا میرافشار. در ضمن پس زمینه اسلایدها هم دست خط دکتر یارشاتر. دکتر جلال متینی در متنی که اجازه بازنشرش رو به ما دادند و نخستین متن این کتابه، پیشگفتار کتابه در واقع، روایت خودشون رو از دعوتشون از دکتر یارشاتر برای نوشتن این یادداشت‌ها تعریف کردند که به طور خیلی موجز از این قراره که دکتر یارشاتر وقتی که کتاب یا مجله‌ای می‌خواندن در حاشیه‌های سفید کاغذ یادداشت‌هایی برمی‌داشتن، به اصطلاح حاشیه‌نویسی می‌کردن و دکتر متینی توضیح میدن که گاهی این فاصله ها، این فضای سفید کافی نبود و دکتر یارشاتر کاغذی برمی‌داشتن و ادامه اون حاشیه‌نویسی رو روی یک کاغذ سفید تکمیل می‌کردن و اون رو میان صفحات کتاب می‌گذاشتن. در یک دیدار دوستانه دکتر متینی از دکتر یارشاتر خواهش می‌کنند که هر موقع فرصت می‌کنند بعضی از این حاشیه‌نویسی‌ها رو تکمیل کنند به شکل یک متن هرچند کوتاه و در اختیار ایران نامه یا ایران شناسی قرار بدن برای چاپ که این اتفاق میفته و دکتر یارشاتر متعهد میمونن برای 26 سال تا زمانی که تقریبا آخرین شماره ایران شناسی منتشر میشه برای این نشریات یادداشت بنویسن. در واقع یادداشت‌ها در 6 شماره نخست ایران نامه و از اون به بعد در ایران شناسی چاپ شده بودن بار نخست که نمونه های جلدی رو که میبینیم هم جلد ایران نامه رو مخصوصا شماره های ویژه دکتر یارشاتر و دکتر متینی انتخاب کردم که تصاویرشون رو هم داشته باشیم. با اینکه خانم افخمی اینجا توضیح کامل درباره بنیاد مطالعات ایران دادند، از اونجا که یک صحبت خیلی کوتاهی من دارم در این باره که با کلیت حرف من به نوعی درآمیخته است، من اجازه میخوام 1 دقیقه وقت بگیرم در این باره. بنیاد مطالعات ایران خب دلیل و زمینه ساز و پشتیبان چاپ نخست این یادداشت‌ها در اون 2 نشریه بوده. همچنین ناشر کتاب یادداشت هاست، یعنی دلیل و پشتیبان بازنشر این یادداشت‌ها هم هست. همونطور که خانم افخمی گفتند، چون که این بنیاد خیلی زود پا گرفته و خوشبختانه دیر پاییده، من فکر میکنم بازخوانی فعالیت‌های فرهنگی بنیاد هم مانند خود کتاب یادداشت‌ها در واقع روند شکل گرفتن یک جامعه فارسی زبان رو در بیرون از جغرافیا و فرهنگ متعارفش به ما منتقل میکنه. این مسئله که ثبت بخشی از تاریخ اجتماعی ماست در دوران بعد از انقلاب اسلامی در بیرون از ایران، بیرون از جغرافیای ایران، برای من حتما و فکر میکنم برای نسل من ارزش افزوده هم داره، چون ما در یک دورانی بزرگ شدیم و درس خوندیم که تلاش‌های سازمان یافته شده توسط نهاد قدرت که ما دقیقاً این بخش از تاریخ اجتماعیمون رو یا خیلی مخدوش دریافت کنیم یا اصلاً ندونیم. در نتیجه من ادای دین و احترام دارم خدمت اعضای ثابت بنیاد، خانم مهناز افخمی مدیر عامل بنیاد، آقای غلامرضا افخمی مدیر پروژه تاریخ شفاهی و آقای هرمز حکمت که یاد عزیز و شریفشون گرامی باشه که ویراستار ارشد بنیاد مطالعات ایران بودند. در اولین بازخوانی سلسله یادداشت‌هایی که در این کتاب هست، در ادامه صحبتم درباره ثبت تاریخ اجتماعی توسط همه فعالیت‌های دیگر بنیاد، واقعاً تاریخ اجتماعی این دوران به ما منتقل میشه. به این دلیل که این یادداشت‌ها متون مطبوعاتی هستند، در نتیجه دقیقاً تاریخ خوردن که در چه زمانی نوشته شدن و چاپ شدن. و وقتی که ما اینها رو به شکل سلسله وار بخونیم، مثلا متوجه میشیم نخستین نشریه فارسی زبانی که بعد از انقلاب اسلامی در بیرون از جغرافیای ایران چاپ شده در چه تاریخی، در کدام شهر و توسط چه کسی پا گرفته. و همچنین کتاب‌های فارسی، نمایشگاه‌های عکاسی یا نقاشی که توسط ایرانیان برگزار شده، حتی گفتمان‌های مسلط بر جامعه در هر دوران. در نتیجه کتاب با اینکه در برگیرنده 164 متن مستقله، به این معنی که میشه هر جای کتاب رو باز کرد و یک یادداشت رو خوند و دریافت و برداشت کامل از اون داشت، در مسیر خودش کتاب ما رو با فرایندی آشنا میکنه که به فراورده‌ای در واقع میرسه، یعنی به کلیتی میرسه با اجزاء به هم پیوسته و با هم در ارتباط. کتاب با یادداشتی درباره غلام حسین ساعدی، نویسنده نام‌آشنای ایرانی باز میشه و با یادداشتی درباره گراردونولی، ایرانشناس نام‌آشنای ایتالیایی به پایان میرسه. هر دو این یادداشت‌ها در سوگ این دو شخصیت نوشته شدن، در سوگ درگذشت اینها. وقتی این متن‌ها رو میخونیم، در واقع هر دو این یادداشت‌ها در سوگ از دست رفتن امکان آفرینش بیشتر توسط این دو شخصیت در گستره فرهنگ ایران نوشته شدند. و در فاصله این دو متن ما با روایت‌های متعددی روبرو میشیم درباره رویدادهای فرهنگی ایران و هر آنچه درباره ایران و درباره میراث فرهنگی ایران در یک گستره جغرافیایی و تاریخی گسترده، همونطور که خانم افخمی گفتن. نگاه آگاه و سنجیده و منصف دکتر یارشاتر تاریخ رو روایتی با مراحل به هم پیوسته و از هم اثرپذیرنده تعریف میکنه. در یادداشت‌های دکتر یارشاتر، ادبیات فارسی و فرهنگ ایران با شکست سلسله‌های پادشاهی شکست نمیخورند. سهم ایران و فرهنگ ایران در بالیدن فرهنگ و تمدن جهان دست کم گرفته نمیشه، همچنان که سهم فرهنگ‌ها و تمدن‌های جهان در بالیدن ایران و ایرانی قدر گذارده میشه. حضور، همنشینی و سازگاری اندیشه‌های گوناگون ایرانی جهانی در یادداشت‌ها به نظر من بازتاب جهانبینی احسان یارشاتره که باز به نظر من برآمده از زندگی شخصی اوست. دکتر احسان یارشاتر به معنای دقیق کلمات انسانی خود ساخته بود. از دوران نوجوانی تا همیشه تمام دستاوردهای زندگی استثنائیش فقط و فقط به همت بلند خودش تکیه داشت. یادداشت‌ها من فکر می‌کنم ما رو با اون انسانی آشنا می‌کنه که پشت شخصیت یارشاتر دانشگاهی، پژوهشگر، سردبیر دانشنامه ایرانیکا و نهادساز ایستاده. انسانی که به تمام جلوه‌های زندگی اهمیت میداد، خیلی هم جدی اهمیت میداد. از دوران دانشسرای مقدماتی به طور حرفه‌ای با گروهی کوهنوردی رو آغاز کرد، کمی بعد اسکی رو به طور حرفه‌ای یاد گرفت، رقص رو با معلم یاد گرفت و 2 بار در مسابقات رقص والس جایزه نفر اول رو دریافت کرد. نقاشی مدرن رو مطالعه کرد شخصاً اون به طوری که به طور حرفه‌ای مقالات علمی درباره‌اش رو نوشت در نشریه سخن و این مقاله ها بعدها در کتابی در 2 مجلد توسط انتشارات امیرکبیر چاپ شدند. موسیقی کلاسیک ایرانی و غربی رو به طور دقیق و علمی می‌شناخت و مجموعه های بزرگ و ارزنده از هر دو در منزل داشت و البته معاشرت با دوستان به شکل شگفت انگیزی با تمام این کارها اولویت زندگی دکتر یارشاتر بود و همچنین سفر واقعا برای سفر، نه فقط سفرهای کاری. من فکر میکنم انسانی که بتونه به تمام جلوه های زندگی که ما گاهی اونها رو روزمره ها یا روزانه ها مینامیم اینطور اهمیت بده، احتمالاً بستری فراهم میشه در فکرش و در روانش که بتونه ارتباط و اثرگذاری و اثرپذیری فرهنگ‌های جهان رو بر همدیگه دریافت کنه، یعنی در واقع فرهنگ‌ها و تمدن‌ها رو با هم در اندرکنش یا تعامل ببینه. برای آشنایی بیواسطه با متن کتاب، من چون میدونم وقت کمه فقط از یکی از یادداشت‌ها 2 پاراگراف انتخاب کردم. قبل از اینکه اون رو با هم بخونیم دوست دارم بگم بیشترین موضوعی که در این کتاب بهش پرداخته شده زبانه، مسئله زبانه. من اصولا فکر میکنم مسئله محوری زندگی دکتر یارشاتر زبان بود. دکتر یارشاتر زبان رو ظرف اندیشه یا صورت ملفوظ اندیشه تعریف میکرد. عین جمله استاده، زبان صورت ملفوظ اندیشه است. و دکتر یارشاتر بارها در این یادداشت‌ها تعریف کرده، توضیح داده که دلیلی که نام ایران رو در تاریخ حفظ کرده فرهنگ ایرانه و در دل اون به عنوان رکن اصلی اون زبان فارسی است. و الگوی او هم، یعنی اون زبان فارسی که دکتر یارشاتر الگوی خودش میدونست و بسیار قبول داشت، زبانی بود که سعدی داشت. نثر و شعر سعدی همیشه برای دکتر یارشاتر در واقع غیر قابل رقابت بود و پس از او نثر دکتر خانلری رو خیلی میپسندید. من فکر میکنم هر کسی که کتاب یادداشت‌ها رو بخواد مطالعه کنه، خوبه که به نثر، به ساختار زبانی یادداشت‌ها توجه کنه که نثری محکم، خوشتراش و پرقوامه و در عین حال در دسترس و دور از هر نوع پیچیدگی، به اصطلاح معروف سهل و ممتنع، ماننده آنچه که سعدی می‌نوشت. دکتر یارشاتر در یکی از یادداشت‌های این کتاب نوشته: ما 2 گونه وطن داریم. یکی آنکه میان دریای مازندران و خلیج فارس قرار دارد، با کوه‌های بلند و رودهای کم آب و صحراهای فراخ و ریگزارها و شوره‌زارهای گرم و خشک و بیشه‌هایی که از چند قرن پیش باز رو به کاستی داشته است. وطن دوم ما وطنی است که در آفاق ذهن ما خانه دارد. وطنی است روشن و دلانگیز با رنگ‌های شفاف و دیده‌فریب. در آن رودکی چنگ برمیگیرد و سرود شادی و نغمه می و مستی می‌نوازد و فردوسی داستان دلاوری‌های قهرمانان ما را با آهنگی پهلوانی سر می‌دهد. سعدی آدمیت و عدل پروری و پوزش پذیری و خدمت به خلق و زیبایی آنها را در نظر ما ترسیم می‌کند و حافظ نوای عشق و آزادگی را به آهنگی لطیف در گوش ما زمزمه می‌کند. وطن خاکی ما پیوسته در معرض آفات است و وطن معنوی ما برعکس، از گزند باد و باران و دستبرد ویرانگر حوادث در امان. درخشش آن را تیرگی اعمال ما زائل نمی‌کند. گنجی است که از آن ماست. آفتابی است که پیوسته میتابد. زنده و پایدار است. بر ماست که این وطن را زیباتر و تابناکتر کنیم. این برگرفته از یادداشتی است با عنوان وطن دوگانه ما که در سال 1374 در ایران شناسی چاپ شده بود. اجازه میخوام صحبتم رو با دقیقه از صدای استاد به پایان ببرم. فایل شنیداری که با هم گوش میکنیم برگرفته از یک گفتگوی بلندی است که چند سال پیش من در محضر دکتر یارشاتر با او داشتم و چون عیناً این جملات در کتاب بازتاب داده شده، من فکر میکنم که اجازه داشته باشم که این رو با صدای خودشون پخش کنم و فقط یادآوری میکنم که تقریباً حدود 94 یا 95 ساله بودند استاد وقتی که این صحبت رو کردند.
خوشبختانه بیشتر کارهایی که من کردم تقریبا نزدیک به تمامش کارها بودی که من با عشق و علاقه کردم و دوست داشتم همین جریان انجام کار رو و به من یک لذت میبخشید، هم برای اینکه اثر لذت بخشی بود و همین که گاهی فکر می‌کردم اصلا این چیز به زبان فارسی اضافه میشه و اینه که مشوق من میشه. چیزی که من هم خیلی بهش فکر کردم که این یعنی چه و چه نصفه، اون انصافه که انگلیسیش میشه فرنس. من اینقدر قرض و مرض میدیدم که برای من خیلی مهم شده بود که انسان هم خودش در کارها منصف باشه، و خصوص من که کار نقد و انتخاب داشتم و همین که در دیگران اگه پیدا میکنه بپسنده. صفت خیلی رایجی نیست. غالب اشخاص یا یک جنبه احساساتی دارن نسبت به کار یا به دلایلی از چیزهای خوش میاد، چیزهای خوش نمیاد و اینه که در قضاوت هاشون هم غالبا یه طرف از یه چیزی یا بده یا خوبه، ولی انصاف رو آدم جاشو خالی میبینه و من از قدیم خیلی توجه به معنی انصاف و به خود کلمه انصاف داشتم.
سپاسگزارم از وقتتون و من صفحه رو برمیگردونم به روما. Thank you so much, روما.
Thank you and hello to everyone. I would like to start by thanking Professor Abbas Milani for organizing this session and inviting me to take part in it. My thanks also to Ms. Roma Parhat and Mr. Franco Enrico of the Moghadam program in Iranian Studies for helping us to prepare for this webinar. I wish it were in person and I could see my colleagues and other friends. I would also like to extend my deep gratitude to Dr. Mandana Zandian for her admirable work in editing and overseeing the publication of Professor Yarshater's notes. Also to Ms. Mahnaz Afkhami, who suggested the idea in the first place and later led the publishing process of the book. As was mentioned by my colleagues, the Foundation for Iranian Studies and the Persian Heritage Foundation provided the logistical and financial support to bring the project to fruition. What I would like to do in the very short time that I have is to give you three interrelated aspects of Dr. Yarshater's work. The first is the achievements or the achievements, his achievements as a leading scholar of his generation. Very rightfully, he has been referred to by many as the doyen of Iranian studies. In the second part of my brief comments, I want to emphasize his role as the initiator of projects and creator of institutions with lasting impact on the promotion of Iranian culture and civilization. And finally, in the concluding part of my talk, I want to give a few examples taken from the Yaddashtha book to illustrate his frequent forays beyond strictly scholarly subjects to deal with topics relating to Iran's popular culture, politics, and Iranians' relations with their neighbors and the rest of the world. So let me begin then with Dr. Yarshater's work as a scholar. He received his doctorate in Persian literature under the direction of Ali Asghar Hekmat at Tehran University back in 1947. He continued his studies for the next 5 years at the University of London's School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, receiving an MA degree in 1953, upon which he returned to Iran and was appointed a lecturer in Persian language and literature in the Faculty of Letters at Tehran University. In his new position, he conducted extensive field research in villages of Northwest Iran and on Southern Tati dialects, a topic that he had worked on as a student when he was at SOAS under the guidance of the distinguished Iranologist Walter Bruno Henning. This pioneering linguistic research served as the basis for his doctoral dissertation at the University of London, which he completed in, I believe, in 1960. Invited as a visiting associate professor of Iranian Studies at Columbia University in 1958, Dr. Yarshater spent the next 2 years at Columbia and returned to Iran again in 1960, at which time this coincided with the retirement of his one-time mentor, Dr. Ibrahim Purdavud, and Yarshater was appointed to Purdavud's chair in ancient Persian culture at Tehran University. He served in that role for only 1 year, and he returned back to Columbia University, at which point he was appointed as a newly established, as the inaugural holder of the chair of Hagop Kevorkian in Iranian Studies, a position that he held for nearly 3 decades until his retirement from teaching in 1990. He served twice as the chair of the Department of Middle Eastern Languages and Cultures, and in 1967, he founded the Center for Iranian Studies, the first such academic center in North America devoted exclusively to the study of Iran, and he served as the director of that center until 2014, which was the last year of his professional activities. By any standards, Professor Yarshater's tenure at Columbia University for nearly 5.5 decades was an extraordinary example of scholarly achievements and productivity. Besides teaching and mentoring 2 generations of students on different aspects of Iran's cultural history, literature, and languages, he authored or edited 16 major books and over 100 scholarly articles and chapters. In addition to all of this, that is his own writings, he helped initiate and oversaw a number of monumental publications in Iranian history, literature, and arts. To give you a few examples, an 8-volume critical edition of Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, edited with extensive notes by Dr. Khaliqi Mutlaq. An authoritative translation of Tarikh Tabari, arguably the most important work in Islamic historiography, in 40 volumes, published in English, again under his supervision and initiated by Dr. Yarshater. A 2-volume translation of Tarikh Bayhaqi, a truly impressive 20-volume history of Persian literature, which he initiated again and has continued under the very able editorship of Dr. Mohsen Ashtiani. It continues, and I believe so far 5 of the 20 volumes have actually been published. Professor Yarshater also played executive and leadership roles in a number of professional organizations worldwide. I don't think we have time for me to go through all of this, but they cover a wide variety of institutions and professional associations, which he either presided over or was an active member of, a distinguished member of over these years. So let me shift now to his work as an institution builder. Beyond his own pioneering research and publications, Yarshater created venues, projects, and institutions that sought to promote not only Iranians' knowledge of their own culture and history, but also their knowledge and understanding of other cultures and civilizations. In 1953, when he had just started his teaching position at Tehran University, he embarked on the first major project beyond the walls of academia and founded the Bongah Tarjume va Nashr Kitab, the Institute for Translation and Publication of Books. The Institute's initial objective was to translate and publish foreign classics into Persian, applying professional editing and publishing standards that were unprecedented in the country up until then. Within a year after the establishment of this institute, he published 5 major translations. One was Schiller's Wilhelm Tell, another was a version of Tristan and Isolde, yet another Plato's 5 Treatises, Turgenev's Fathers and Sons, and Confucius' Analects. Now it's important that these works were translated by the likes of Muhammad Ali Jamalzadeh, of Parviz Natir Khanlari, of Mahmoud Sanai, of Mehri Ari, and Kazemzadeh Iranshah. These were obviously the most prominent literary scholars of their time. The literary weight of these works, the prominence of their translators, the usual care exercised in checking, the unusual care, I should say, that was exercised in checking the accuracy of the translations against the original, and the well-designed appearance of the books attracted the attention of discriminating readers and helped to raise the editing production standards for Iran. Over the years, a total of 71 major works of world literature were published in this foreign literature part of the publications of the Institute for the Translation and Publication of Books. Later, the Institute initiated additional book series in the mid-1950s. These included a series called the General Knowledge Series, Majmu'e Ma'arif Umumi, and there were 138 titles in that series. Another series, Persian Texts, Majmu'e Motun Farsi, with 48 titles. A series on Iranian Studies, Majmu'e Iran Shenasi, with 68 titles. Several general and specialized bibliographies, including a massive multi-volume bibliography of printed Persian books by Iraj Afshar. And 3 additional series geared to younger groups. This was really remarkable. These included a children's collection, Majmu'e Kudakan, for children of 4 to 7 years of age, an early youth collection, Majmu'e Nojavanan, 8 to 11 years of age, and a youth collection, Majmu'e Javanan, for ages 12 to 15. Altogether, 98 titles were published in the last 3 decades. With such remarkable output in both quality and quantity, the Institute made an unparalleled contribution to the cultural literacy of Iranians, young and old, over the course of its quarter-century existence from 1953 to 1979. It continued its activities under the same name for an additional 2 years after the 1979 revolution, before being dissolved by the Islamic Republic. In 1957, again, only a few years after he had been appointed to his position at the Iranian University, with the help of Yaddashtha and Abdul Hussein Zarrinkoob and several other scholars, Yarshater founded Iran's first modern book society, Anjuman Kitab, and as its main organ, the first Persian language journal of book reviews, Rahnamai Kitab, with Yaddashtha and Mustafa Mogharrabi as its associate editors, for over 2.5 decades until its closure in 1979. Rahnamai Kitab served as the principal periodical for the review of new books on Persian literature, culture, history, as well as about advances in various fields of Iranian studies in Iran and abroad. It should go without saying that these enormous initiatives and achievements were not solely the work of Professor Yarshater. The fact that he repeatedly acknowledged in his writings what has often gone unmentioned in recounting his extraordinary achievements. He was fortunate to be part of and work closely with some of the most prominent members of Iran's cultural and academic elites during his years in Iran. These included Ali Akbar Siyasi, Sayyid Hassan Taqizadeh, Isa Sadiq, Muhammad Ali Jamalzadeh, Mahmoud Sanei, Badiüzzaman Firuzanfar, Ghulam Hussein Yousefi, Zaryab Khoei, Abdul Hussein Zarrinkoob, Iraj Afshar, Mujtaba Minovi, Mehri Ahi, Ahmad Birashk, among many others. He also was supported by the Iranian government and the imperial court in nearly all of these projects. Now, the crowning achievement of Professor Yarshater's long and illustrious career was, of course, the massive Encyclopædia Iranica, whose editing, management, and sustenance as an institution occupied him for the last 3.5 decades of his life. The current English version of Encyclopædia Iranica was brought out, or it just brought out its 16th volume, completed its 16 volumes, and it is still in letter K. And let me mention that there are something like 29 articles, for example, on Khorasan in this latest volume of Encyclopædia Iranica. No matter what topic one is interested in, you can be absolutely certain that the most authoritative and the most detailed work, scholarly work on the topic has been published or is being published in the Encyclopædia Iranica. Now, I should say that the encyclopedia, I remember reviewing it some 30 years ago, back in 1990, I believe. And at that time, I said that in my judgment, this was the most significant contribution to the field of Iranian studies of that century, that is of the 20th century. Now I think I can say with some confidence that it may well turn out to be the most significant book in Iranian studies, in the field of Iranian studies, over 2 centuries, the 20th and the 21st century. It is being edited now at Columbia University, at the newly established Yarshater Center for Iranian Studies at Columbia University, which was established with help of the Persian Heritage Foundation 3 years ago. The encyclopedia is being edited by Dr. Elton Daniel, a very capable editor, and as I mentioned, it is currently in its 17th volume, and increasingly it has become an online publication with free access to everyone, which is really remarkable. One of very few encyclopedias that is accessible to everyone without paying any kind of a fee. I may add, with a great sense of disappointment here, that an ongoing dispute between the Encyclopædia Iranica Foundation, the entity that was established by Professor Yarshater to ensure the continuity and financial support for the encyclopedia on the one hand, and Columbia University Center for Iranian Studies that houses and supports the editorial staff of the project, that this long and ongoing dispute has damaged the publication of at least the flow of work in the editing and publication of the encyclopedia. It is a long, drawn-out legal battle, which is now being fought in the state of New York before the Board of Charities, and it could seriously limit, has, in my judgment, limited the progress of the encyclopedia and may well threaten its continuation. Thankfully, so far, the editorial staff has been able to continue bringing out the fascicles in the same manner as before, but the financial support for the project has diminished significantly. Now, let me turn very briefly to the third aspect of Professor Yarshater's lifetime work, which, as I mentioned, went beyond academia's ivory towers and his attempts in this manner to initiate significant publication series and really deal with matters that are of concern to the public in general. This includes engaging and delightfully readable reviews and commentaries on a wide variety of literary works, from classical Persian literature to contemporary works of fiction, poetry, artwork. There are reviews in this book, Yaddashtha, that have been written, bringing out the work, acknowledging the work of leading and young scholars of Iranian studies, both in Iran and abroad, and putting their works in context and praising and encouraging them to continue. I think I should stop there. Let me simply end by reflecting on something that Dr. Yarshater said about, I think, 10 or 15 years before he passed away. He said, reflecting on his early years, he said, "No sooner had I settled in my job at the University of Tehran back in the 1950s, that I was affected by a virus of which the main symptom is that it kills all your leisure time and keeps you running after minutes and seconds. I did not leave myself much time for attending to the more delectable aspects of life." But we all know, as I think Dr. Zandian pointed out, that this terrible virus never left Professor Yarshater's body and was probably what kept him at his desk every day of the week until late evening hours. But as tenacious as the virus was, it was never able to subdue his indomitable zest for life and appreciation of the finer and more delectable things in life, such as the arts, Persian poetry, music, ballroom dancing, travel, and long walks with his earphones in Riverside Park, and above all, the companionship of his many friends and admirers. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for wonderful presentations. We have some questions from the audience, but I think we're keeping with our practice. I, as a moderator, will abuse my position and begin by asking each of you at least one question, and then we'll get to audience questions. I think Ms. Afkhami has left. Is she there? Oh, yeah, yes. She referred to something in passing, that Princess Ashraf was denied the chance to go to university. In fact, she was denied the chance to go to high school with his brother. She was scheduled to go, and the last moment, the father that was so famously in favor of women's rights, decided that the girl shouldn't go. So my question has always been to ask you, how did you convince her? What kind of a process was it to get her to make this? 2 million at that time was a major contribution. It was a big sum of money. It's probably about 20 million in today's dollars. What was the process of the conversation? Did she initiate it, or did you suggest to her? I think that's a very important part of history for us to know.
Thanks, Abbas. I basically went to her when the idea came from my husband, the group we were with, which I mentioned, Dr. Oreshi, but there was Dr. Etemad, Sami, Ali Maraghi, and others. I thought, okay, what are we going to do in terms of resources? And at that time, of course, the idea of philanthropy was not really a common one among the Iranian community. Actually, I want to digress to say that this was also something that Dr. Yarshater taught the Iranian community, at least in diaspora, that if you want these services, these ideas, these events, you have to contribute to it, you have to own it. And he was the first one to do it, and he was very successful in it. But at the time, there was no one. I only knew that she is interested in knowledge sharing, in research, in education. She's passionate about it and very, very much regrets that she hasn't had the opportunity. So I just went to her and said, could you help? And at that was the time when she was pushed to help politically. Every minority group, every majority group, or whatever wanted help. Her family needed assistance and all of that. And her community around her, there wasn't anyone who was that interested. I remember when the issue that I mentioned to you, the first issue of Iran Nameh, I took it to her after she agreed and we started the work. She was the only one who was excited about it. The people were, even ambassadors who were there in the dinner that we were sharing, and they were saying, what is khiyaban? What is the point of this? She was the only one who was saying, this is interesting. I like this, and that kind of thing. She was just very curious, very interested and regretted very much that she hadn't had it. So she came up with it very easily. And actually 2 million even then wasn't really all that much, I must say, because when you put it and wanted to get money to use, it would come to something like 200,000 a year. And without the work of others and sharing with museums and universities, it wouldn't have happened. But she did, whenever we asked her for extra, she came up with it.
Yeah.
So that was the story.
Thank you. Professor Yarshater received the Bita Prize, a prize that Bita Daryabari has endowed at Stanford. And one of the greatest talks in reception of the prize was given by Professor Yarshater. This is on our website. I strongly urge everybody to go watch it. It's a 5-minute talk. This is towards the end of his life. He's already very, almost unable to move. He went to the stage. We had a place for him. He sat down. And then came the time for him to talk. And his hand was shaking. I wasn't sure that he could even deliver the talk. And then he gradually, gingerly got up and stood on his cane and delivered this epic acceptance speech. Almost everything that we talked about what drove him, this passion that he had for ideas, this passion that he had for language was evident. I still come close to crying every time I remember the heroism of his effort. And that leads me to my question from Dr. Zandian. Dr. Zandian has not only written, edited Yaddashtha, but she has written what is the most extensive book on Yarshater's views on almost everything. So could you tell us a little bit about that book, Dr. Zandian?
Of course, that was, I think, the greatest honor in my life by now. It was a very, I don't even know how to put it in words, the experience, how it was maybe the best university I attended in my life, seriously. Not just about Iranian studies and about Dr. Yarshater's life story, about the daily life he would live. Because the way that we did that book was, I used to travel to New York on Friday night after hospital, like overnight. I was there Saturday morning, directly go to his office. We started working at 10 a.m. every Saturday. And until about 6 p.m. And I remember when we started it, Dr. Yarshater was 93 already. And when he actually brought this up, that he wants to write his narration of his life, and he wants it to be like as an interview. He doesn't want just to sit and write it as a memoir. And I remember I told him, of course, it's an honor for anybody, but I'm sure there are people from your generation in Iranian studies that can do it much better than me, because I don't really know so much. And he said, people from my generation already has their conclusion about everything. So if they want to ask me questions, they already have their answers. I want to work with someone that can sit in front of me and really have questions from my life. I want to know what you want to know as the reader of my life, what you want to know, what is interesting for someone from your generation. And then we did it over almost a year and a half. We did the interview. Because of the travel matter, I couldn't do it like every week, of course. So, and then it took about a year for me to finish the book, to really transcribe it. We edited it maybe 100 times, as everyone knows Dr. Yarshater. So each part, when it was transcribed and typed out, I read it for Dr. Yarshater, and then we edited it together, and then we went to the next section. But just something a bit more entertaining about that is, in the very first sessions, I was very concerned that Dr. Yarshater would get tired because of his age. And a couple of times I said, do you want us to stop here? Do you want water? Do you want to have lunch? I can go and come back, something like that. And then after a few times I said that, Dr. Yarshater once told me, you know, I'm fine. If you really need water or food or anything, you can go. I wait for you. You can come back and we continue the work. But if you are really concerned and you want to do something, I have suggestion. And that's it. After each session of interview, you recite a poem by Sadi for me. That would pay off. And that became a ritual all that 1.5 years. We read Sadi a lot. And even after that, when Dr. Yarshater was in California for the last 2 years of his life, living with his niece, whenever I would go there, we continued reciting Sadi, especially Sadi's ghazals for him. So that was one of the best parts of our collaboration.
Dr. Banuazizi, there are a couple of questions about Encyclopædia Iranica. You alluded to the problems. People are asking what, if anything, can be done to preserve the tradition that Professor Yarshater established in Iranica and continuing it. I fully agree with you. I think it is the single greatest text in Iranian introducing Iran to the international community. And the idea that it will not continue because of some petty squabbles is just tragic. So is there a way that the community can help, and how can it help?
Well, it's a difficult question because at the moment the case is before the Board of Charities in the state of New York. So it is a legal fight that is going on. To put it very briefly, Dr. Yarshater created the Encyclopædia Iranica Foundation, whose principal objective was to provide support for the publication of encyclopedia. Unfortunately, after Yarshater left Columbia University to go to California, and a new editor took over, a conflict developed between the new editor, Dr. Elton Daniel, and the Encyclopædia Iranica Foundation. And this turned out to be a very difficult dispute between the two sides, and the Encyclopædia Iranica Foundation essentially refused to provide financial support for the publication of encyclopedia, even though that was the principal objective according to the Constitution, to the bylaws of the foundation. The matter then became a dispute between this foundation, the Encyclopædia Iranica Foundation on the one hand, and Columbia University that holds copyrights to the Encyclopædia Iranica publication. The two sides are now involved in a legal battle in the state of New York. And really, the only thing that can be done is to try to persuade the Encyclopædia Iranica Foundation to deliver on its own mission, to do what it was established to do, namely to provide support for the encyclopedia. It is my hope that this can be resolved in a manner that would be, through discussions and negotiations, rather than dragging it out as a legal battle for the next 3 or 4 years. Now, in the meantime, I should say that the Persian Heritage Foundation has made a substantial contribution to this Yarshater Center for Iranian Studies at Columbia University. And that contribution has allowed the editorial staff of the encyclopedia to, at least for the time being, to continue editing and publishing the encyclopedia, for which we should all be very grateful to Elton Daniel, to Mohsen Ashtiani, Dr. Mohsen Ashtiani, another editor, and to Ms. Moazzami. So the work is going on, but with very limited resources and very limited personnel. And as I mentioned before, I am worried that this may not allow the encyclopedia to bring to conclusion its mission over the next several years. I hope that won't happen, but I'm worried.
Before I ask Ms. Afkhami to have some closing comments, because she is the Ba'is Khair, Bani Khair, she started this journal. I want to say that Professor Banuazizi himself has had a great role in all of these years in promoting Iranian studies. He's one of the founders of a journal that has endured now for, I think, maybe 50 years, one of the oldest journals of Iranian studies in English. He has had a remarkable role in introducing Shahrukh Maskoub to the English world, who is a prominent Iranian scholar. We just had a conference. Professor Banuazizi helped us organize the conference. The papers of that conference are now published. The Mage publisher has published it. So he himself deserves an enormous, at least note of gratitude from me, having watched him for 40 years do remarkable work in introducing Iran and trying to infuse some sanity in an era where oftentimes sanity is a hard commodity. So thank you for all you have done. Mahnaz Khanum, please.
Thank you, Abbas. For one thing, I want to thank you. You're sort of following in the footsteps of Dr. Yarshater yourself, and what you've done in recent years, both in collecting the archives, the extensive and fantastic archival works that exist in Iranian studies. Without those, we would have a hard time to keep track of what we have experienced, what has been going on in the country. And I really admire your patience and your perseverance and your dedication to this project. That is, I think, one of the something that Ehsan would have truly been grateful for, and we all should be and are. So thank you for that. And then I also want to thank Mandana. I was just writing to her a note saying, Mandana, when I go, I want you to introduce me, because you are so eloquent and so generous in your praise. And so remember that on your list in the future, I hope far future, And the others who helped, Mr. Sajjadi, Ali Sajjadi, was very helpful, because he was the one that has worked with us for something like 40 years, both with Iran Nameh and Dr. Matini, and also with Iran Shanasi. And he has been a really very, very helpful person in getting the Yaddashtha and the journals and everything else we publish. For instance, the publications of the foundation, for instance, the Encyclopædia, the Reza Shah, and so forth. So Sajjadi, I want to thank, and Hura Yavari also, who was part of the committee with which Ali helped a great deal with. And Hura also worked with Dr. Yarshater closely, almost her entire career outside of Iran. And so her work was very helpful too. And of course, as I said, Mandana, who was the major, I don't know how, now that I was thinking about Ehsan's suggestion to me, what do you mean you want to be a doctor? So you see, maybe I should have been that kind of doctor, you know, to have the science and then at the same time have the literature and the arts. That is the perfect combination. So anyway, in terms of the Yaddashtha, I want to just say that it's a precious book. Every time I pick it up and look at it, I discover something new. And that is because Ehsan was terrific in the kind of, as Ali said, organizational development in terms of starting new and extensive processes of research and publication. All of that is pretty well shared. What has not been shared is the side of him that Mandana mentioned in terms of his love of sports, his love of life, music, dance, whatever, that, you know, wide range of experiences. And also the magnificent prose. I think another example of it is in the book that he asked us to republish, his Dastanhai Shahnameh, which is for young kids. And we were working with young children. And that book, the way that there's the simplicity and beauty of repeating those stories in this kind of prose. And Yaddashtha really reflects this other sides of his life as connected to his artistry in terms of prose writing. So I hope everybody has been encouraged by our sides of familiarity with it, and many more people will read it now that it's all in one place, so they don't have to go to different issues of Iran Nameh and Iran Shanasi to find them.
Well, thank you very much.
May I also thank Abbas, Roma, and Franco for their wonderful work and the patience they've had with us.
I also want to thank them, because everything we do here, we do because of them and because of all their remarkable work. And I think the audience would agree that we had a truly remarkable panel about a very remarkable life. And we are indebted to all of you for sharing these insights about a person who has had an enduring impact on Iran, Iran's history, and Iran's culture. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. This was an unusually long event for us, but we had so much to say, as you heard, and we are very grateful for all of you for staying. Thank you.